Hello, listening people.
Hello.
Hello, Bartek. How are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, Ryan. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm feeling very happy to be here because we're talking about a film from one of our favorite countries ever when it comes to everything about them, I'm sure, but mainly their entertainment industry. That's right, everyone. We're talking about a special country, but we'll get to that in a second because we're from a special place in the world. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
We are spit and Polish, likingly because we're always spitting, and we both happen to be Polish. Bartek, do you have any Polish news for us? Breaking Polish news that will be definitely aged well before this episode is released?
No, I don't think so. There was something that was kind of happening in Poland, but what was it? Oh, right! The Polish presidential election is happening today-ish as of this recording. What time is it in Poland right now?
Yeah, please check the Polish time.
It's okay. You know
or
how
as I call it, PT.
You know how on phones you got the clock app? I've got World Clock and I've got Poland time. It is as of this exact recording second, 6:29 a.m. in
Great.
Warsaw. So the voting will be happening today.
Excellent.
Probably I'm assuming over the next 12-ish, 15-ish hours.
I hope so.
Yep. And yeah, our good friend who a couple of weeks ago you've memorized his last name, Andrzej Duda.
Yeah.
Is going to be finishing his second term, so there's
lovely doodah.
Yeah, there's going to be some new man in charge.
Because in Poland they have a cutoff of only 2 terms.
Yep, and they're 5 years each.
If you're president, I guess you have to have a limited amount of terms. Unlike if you have a prime minister, they can just go forever. Nothing can stop a prime minister.
I guess that's what happens in a pesky republic.
Oh, those pesky republics.
Yep. So, as of the end of our recording, we won't know who the president is, but as of the release of this episode, you guys can look up who it is. Is it going to be Rafał Trzaskowski or Karol Nawrocki?
You sound unsure of how to pronounce those.
You know what?
The Polish.
You know what? I said it perfectly just before we started recording, and then I got nervous because the listening people are listening.
You got nervous because
Trzaskowski was the first one.
The Polish police, as we call them, the PP, have their tasers set and ready if you fuck it up.
So Ryan, unfortunately, Trzaskowski and Nawrocki are both much longer than Duda. So I guess we're going to have to call them Rafał or Karol.
But they're closer to my name, so that's fine. Because they have key at the end. So it's all coming up for Ryan Slawinski.
One's a ski, one's a key.
But outside of the wonderful world of Polish politics, we love to talk about the wonderful world of movies. And we talk about movies that have come recommended, whether it be from one of us or you, the listening people. And this time round, it was a listening people's suggestion. It was on our YouTube channel, in fact. A comment was dropped on us because we love to talk about foreign films. We love to talk about Czech movies in particular. They have a special fondness for us, and we have a fondness for them. It's a two-way street. And some people over the last couple of years have dropped recommendations to us about, hey, if you want to check out more from, said, this filmmaker, or if you want to check out more from this genre or just this style or from this decade, how about this? How about this? How about this? And it's about us being able to find a copy with English subtitles that's in a watchable quality. That's always the trick. That's always the rub here. But Bartek, what film were we pitched?
We were pitched the film The Girl on a Broomstick. Or The Broomstick.
Which is from 1972. Ooh.
Yes, I can't remember the name of the user who recommended this, but they recommended 2 films. And the second film was actually the one that I was initially thinking of last week.
Oh, interesting.
Which I think some people classify that as a Christmas time movie, not necessarily about Christmas, but yeah, we'll see eventually.
But this is The Girl on a Broomstick, or depending where you find translations, A Girl on the Broomstick. This is how do we even describe the plot
The Girl on the Broomstick, and it looks like Czech title is Dívka na kosteti or something.
This is a film about what would you say, Bartek? How would you summarize this to someone to make them check out the film for themselves?
The synopsis of this one, it's a pretty, I was going to say simple film. It has its own rules and you learn those rules. But in terms of the actual experience of watching it, it's set over a short period of time. I think the film just says it's like 44 hours or something.
Mm-hmm.
And it is about a girl who is essentially a witch in this kind of like witch academy that you might see in like, a Harry Potter, a Sabrina, or
The
Worst
Worst
Witch.
Witch. Mm-hmm.
Those kind of settings, you've seen them all before, but this one's in the 70s.
And check.
And check, of course. And she has a conversation with a father figure. I think it is her father.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
About there's the real world or human world, and you can only go there if you do one of these transformation magics. But basically, I think all of the magic in this film is like transforming people into other animals. Like in Harry Potter, it's transfiguration.
Entities, because one gets turned into a puppet.
Oh, that's true. Yes.
Or
not
a toy.
not just animals. Yeah, but basically the main magic in this film is like transformation magic.
Mm-hmm.
And she comes to the real world. There's a sort of like fantastical law thing of like you can only stay for 44 hours unless you get a hag's ear.
Mm-hmm.
And so she seems to kind of like the real world. So she's like, oh, I don't want to go back to that stuffy, magic world where everyone's mean to me. I want to stay here. So I'll, form friendships with these people that I meet and see if they can get me a hag's ear. And there's all sorts of hijinks that ensue from that. And the film's only a little over an hour, so it's a pretty quick watch. But you get a decent amount of hijinks in that time.
So everyone, please make sure to find a copy and watch for yourselves. As of this recording, the version that was on YouTube has been taken off of YouTube. It will most likely reappear at some point, but there's ways of finding this. So please go out and do that. It is marvelous time. I knew nothing going into this. I did not know who the people involved would be. I had some suspicions of like what familiar faces would we see, both in front of the camera and behind the camera. And I was right on some of them, wrong on most of them, but I thought, okay, this is going to be a supernatural film. This is going to be a Halloween film. It's going to be about a witch. And I love how much of that is there. The opening sequences when she's at the school in the supernatural world, the fantasy world, was some of my favorite bits. I just loved seeing their interpretations of what a vampire looks like, or a witch, or whatever bizarre kind of concoction of supernatural creatures they would gravitate towards. I enjoyed all of that, but I really didn't know what I was getting into. Overall, I enjoyed the film, but I didn't love it enough, because to me, it has some real good high points. It feels like they have a couple of really good bits. Like, oh, this would be a fun bit. This would be a fun bit. And then it's just vast stretches of not much happening in between. I think for me, what is sorely missing is the main character, the main witch, the girl on the broomstick, or a broomstick.
I think it's the.
IMDb says
Oh, okay.
but,
Wikipedia says the.
That's why I said.
Yeah, fair enough.
One or the other. She just as a character is hard to gravitate towards, because all she has is, I want to live in the real world, but I don't really see why that much. It's not like the film this reminded me of the most was, I think, the last Czech film we watched about the
How
fish
to Drown
people.
Yeah, technically Krakatid, but yeah, How to Drown, Dr. Mracek, the lawyer.
But that had more of a sensibility of like there's a central romance, so you can understand what the reasoning is why these two different worlds would clash. This one, it kind of shrugs towards that, but it doesn't really have that hook for me of dragging me along between the bits.
Yeah, I'm very similar. In fact, even to the point of comparing it to the How to Drown Dr. Mracek, the lawyer, where both of these films, have a sort of like fantastical people transformation magic kind of thing going on. With that one, it's more aquatic, like turn to fish or mermaids or something like that. But yeah, that one had a whole bigger cast of characters that had their own little personality quirks and arcs. Like there was a whole thing with the mother in that film of
Mm-hmm.
the lawyer who was torn between. She was obsessed with both her child's love life as well as her
Korea.
marine biologist career, whatever it was. It's been a little while. And that led to a lot of very funny hijinks. We obviously had a lot of our returning players return in that. You had a whole comedy of errors, miscommunication thing going on. You even had like one scene wonder characters that came from like overseas and, shook things up. With this one, it is a much smaller and focused cast. Our lead is kind of doesn't really have someone to play off of for long periods of time that is just a singular character. Like she jumps between these three delinquent characters and this one boy who has a lot of pet birds.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I feel like she wasn't quite as fleshed out. We only understood her motivation on pretty much the level that we've already described it. Like, oh, she's not really the best witch in her world. She's, forgetful about the phrases to use, how to do the magic properly, and so she wants to get out. And that's basically it. There's not really much development there. It's just trying to get to that goal and, some interactions with the characters in the world. The way I was thinking of it was if we were to have, like, a really long Czech film marathon where we would watch most of the Czech films that we've covered or have seen personally, I'd probably start with this one just as like a warm-up of like, okay, this isn't the best one, but it kind of gives you an idea of like the kind of things we're going for.
So a fun fact.
Hmm?
There are people that we have seen involved in previous projects that we've covered on the podcast, actors, but this director would go on after this to direct that film about how to drown the lawyer.
Yeah, not
So
surprising.
this particular film that we're talking about today feels like a draft to get to that film, because there is a lot of crossover in the way that they're structured and the ideas of them and the supernatural beings and the crossing over and the conflicts, and I want to become a real person, and this just doesn't have some of those key elements, and that's what I think is the true weakness of this is if they spend a little bit more time on it, they could refine it to not only make it funnier, but to have a bit more heart to it. Because when we talk about these Czech films, yeah, they're outrageous and they're over the top and they're absurd, but there's a heart to them. Like when we talk about Lemonade Joe, yeah, there's a live action cartoon element to it, but there's something more there of interest, like the commentary of the time with Lemonade Joe. It's like, how do you feel about its stance on his political commentary? There's something there with that. Or when we talk about, so many of these other ones, it's like there's something there with the characters, whether it's the interpersonal stuff, the romance stuff, but this here, it is just, they have the premise of what happens if a witch is not very good and she wants to become a human. And it doesn't go beyond that sentence. It doesn't give you more. Like, who is this witch? Does she relate to any human who feels the same, but in his world or their world? Like, is the boy that she's teamed up with similar to her in terms of, like, he's a bit of a fuck up and he wishes he could be? Not really.
Yeah.
He seems fine.
Yeah, I mean, he seems slightly misunderstood by his parents, but it's made clear that they love him and he loves them.
And is it that he's misunderstood by them because of who he is, or because he's trying to hide a sexy young woman that's also a bird or a cow?
That's true. He's just seen a human woman, as far as he could tell, turn into a chicken, and then his parents like see the chicken's like, oh, that shouldn't be here.
What happened to the owl?
I'll turn it into dinner tonight, and then he freaks out. It's like, oh,
yeah.
Is that the only thing that causes strife between them, or is that just a incidental thing?
Yes, and so you're missing some of those elements that could make the film move in a better direction, not only tonally, but pacing-wise, because I just felt lacking throughout most of the film. Like, what I loved, I really loved, but the rest of it left me very ambivalent. I was just sitting there going, okay, like, this is fine. It's fine. Like, I like her outfit. I like some of the visual choices, but I could not tell you a single character that I actually loved in this movie.
No, that's true. I mean, you said before that like the stuff at the school was some of the best stuff, and yeah, when they returned to the school briefly later on, like you could see all the potential there. Like there is, it feels like all of that stuff came from like a whole big franchise of lore. Like, oh, there's that short teacher there who specializes in shrinking magic, and he looks grumpy now, but he's apparently like a real sweetheart. And there's a later point where like they cause a bit of chaos at the school and a bunch of different teachers and stuff run into the room, and there's like a guy with like a knight's armor. There's, you know, a couple of witches come in. Like there's all these like specialized costumes, and it's like, oh, this feels like a lived-in world. And I rewatched the opening credits after I finished the film, and a lot of those characters did have little, you know, caricatures, illustrations in it. Which, by the way, that opening was also like straight out of Dr. Mrachek.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
It was a film this actually made me think of a lot because the plot, when we get to the plot, our main girl on a broomstick or the broomstick, she turns the school faculty into animals, like of the human school. And she turns them into animals, and then there's hijinks around that and mixing them up. And this one, how can we turn them back? Weirdly enough, and then vast stretches where that doesn't matter, and we're actually dealing with like this random bully or this random thing. It made me think of the Batman movie, the 60s Adam West Batman movie, where they turn the UN into like powder, and it's just like, oh, okay, and then they mix them up, and then there's some goofy hijinks, and later on, but you go vast stretches where that doesn't really matter.
Yeah, the ending of the film, they bring them all back to normal.
Then you have the solution to the problem with the hag's ear. It's like, see? And you don't really feel much of a payoff. Like, you don't feel that payoff as a satisfying one. Just like, oh, I guess so. I guess so. Yeah, in terms of the characters, I think these are the most ill-defined of any of the Czech movies we've covered on the podcast. It's just, I couldn't tell you, even the silly characters, what their thing was really that well, other than just like baseline. Yeah, these three delinquent characters, they existed. You know, they Czech police show up at the end. They were Czech police. They weren't. There just wasn't enough like absurdity to them. There was no. I didn't feel like an overjoyed quality to these characters in terms of even the performances, let alone what we were given. Like, I didn't feel like even the principal of the supernatural school, like, oh, that was a fun character, like in terms of like he had multiple hands, and he has the Nosferatu ears or whatever. But other than that, I was like, he's okay.
There were a couple of, maybe not necessarily performances, but like lines or punchlines or like moments that reminded me of a lot of Czech films. Like one of the things we really like is when some innocuous or maybe kind of minor thing ends up being paid off near the end. Like I remember when we first watched the Gentleman I Killed Einstein, you were really gravitating towards the cat, and then the cat ended up serving a purpose. Like, we have one of the teachers in the regular school, she gets, you know, humiliated by being given, like, these big buck teeth, and, like, she's always hiding it throughout the rest of the film, and, you know, she's trying to solve the situation she's in, but she's also, trying to hide the teeth. And then eventually there's a point where, like, the teeth become useful because she has to chew these wires to separate them. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's kind of like the cat thing, you know, you pay off to this minor thing going on.
And it's pay off to two minor things, because she was also asked about the movie to fix the electrical problems with the wire in the staff room, and then she does in her own way.
And then you have, like, silly lines, like, eventually the three bully delinquent guys get taken down by being transformed into teddy bears, and the cops have a line where it's like, I think it was something like, well, legally they can't drive now. It's like, you know, just an absurd, you know, conclusion to ignore the fantastical.
There was a lot of that, of characters just ignoring the fantastical when it was presented to them. A man walks in and sees his colleagues get turned into rabbits, and he calls up the police, and then there's like a whole back and forth about the zoo and him, and then he gets turned into a rabbit. I liked it when they had like puppets of animals. That was very cute for when they wanted to do really cartoonish stuff, and they couldn't get the actual animal to do that said thing. Don't get me wrong, I don't want to feel down on the movie entirely. I think it was just, I saw it was an hour and 15 minutes, and it felt much longer to me. Weirdly, like I was expecting this. Oh, this is going to breeze by real quick, and it just dragged because I I think that they probably had like a 40-minute long movie and they just had to stretch it out. Like, I think a lot of this is just a bunch of faffing about.
There is I mean, there's always something happening. I will say that, but yeah, it didn't quite hit the home run like a lot of the other Czech films we have watched have.
I was looking forward to having a film too that was primarily led by a female character. Like, this is. And she's, other than her look, I don't really know much about her. Like, yeah, she's a fuck up with her magic, but that's about it. Like, she wants to be human, I guess, because she's not good at magic. That's it.
Yeah, it was kind of reminding me of when we did Repo, the Generic Opera last year, where there's a lot of good stuff going on, but like our lead character, like, they're just not quite measuring up to it.
Yes. One of the things that also drags the movie down, I know I'm bashing it, but this does deserve being flagged up. It's racist. There's that. There's the bit where the delinquents become Indian people and put on silly Indian accents. And there's a bit at the witches' school where they have a woman totally made up in full, like, not minstrel, just full black face thing to be like a voodoo witch.
Yeah,
lady.
With that one, I just saw it more as like, all her clothes were black, so all her makeup was black. So I don't know.
She wasn't wearing much in terms of clothing. That was all makeup.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
It wasn't like, didn't she have like a witch's hat or something?
No, she had like
like some sort of cloak,
dready wig.
Yeah.
There was a part of like they were going for the African stuff and the voodoo-esque stuff with some of the supernatural. Even our main witch, she has like the little bone buttons and stuff that was very evocative of like what you see of like a voodoo witch doctor type aesthetic. And I thought that was fine. But then when we get to the magical school, like one of the students there is a clearly white person just made up with like shoe polish, and it's like from head to toe, and they're not wearing much of a costume. They're supposed to be like a a voodoo priestess type, and so I just was like, it's just one of those moments. Was like, I know what you're doing, and I get it. It's the 70s, but it was just one of those moments. Was like, there's not even a gag.
I guess I'd need to look at that character again, because I did think like, oh, she's got dark makeup on, that could probably be construed as blackface, but I wasn't really looking at if there were any cultural elements going on there. I just assumed like they were going for,
she was a witch,
some sort of like shadowy creature or something like that.
She was a witch. She's like, she was in every other non-witch character in the supernatural world aren't the students.
Right,
all the students are witches. So why? Because they're going for that. Witch, voodoo witch stuff.
Yeah, I need to have another look at it.
And then the delinquents being Indian people was just a bit like, okay, like, all right, with their turbans and their beards and the goofy accents. I was like, I don't know, like, we've had some maybe racially insensitive stuff in these movies, but there was always like not so much a justification or defense, but like you could see the internal working of like why they got to that point. Like in Lemonade Joe, when the dastardly villain whose last name is Badman dresses up as not a black person, but as a minstrel performer.
Yeah, like,
you're like,
straight up.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And it's a Western. You go, oh, I get what they're doing here. It's not just the film is made by people in a time where some of the racial sensitivities were different. It was like, oh, there's an intent, there's a thought and an intention, and there's something there. This is one of the few films we've covered where it's like, oh, no. There's just, it was the 70s. It was the 70s, and the thing that bugs me about it is both cases, maybe more so with the student in the supernatural school, it's not like there was even much of a gag to it. Like, oh, you can't even justify it, like, oh, they were doing some joke.
Yeah, well, again, with the school stuff, I just saw that as being like, oh, variety thing. Like, there's the student that's all this, like, black creature.
But there's usually a joke to those.
I
with
guess.
Each one of them, there's usually a joke.
I mean, with that scene, it was just like, oh, handsome boy enters the class that's all girls, and they all kind of fawn over him.
Yeah. She also kind of looked like the creature from Mulholland Drive.
Oh, the behind Winkies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not saying David Lynch watched this movie and got inspired, but I don't have evidence suggesting otherwise. That's how that works. What are some elements of the movie that leapt out to you, or you want to sink your teeth into and chat about?
I mean, yeah, we've kind of given the sort of broad overview of that. Um, the film did still do some of the stuff that we enjoyed, in these Czech films, where it does have the sequence of comedy of error stuff going on, like all the stuff with like the rabbits and the rabbit keeper, that all felt Czech comedy to me.
Very Wallace and Gromit too.
Yeah, very, very concerned about these rabbits that have gone missing, allaying her fears by transforming the rabbits that were just normal rabbits into looking like the rabbits that were the humans turned into rabbits, if that makes sense to people listening. And eventually when they do turn back to normal at the end and they just very casually say like, hello, and step out of the rabbit pen, like that was very funny.
I also liked the moment where she turned the main boy into a doll, and then the delinquent buddies ripped off his head and threw his body, and then when he eventually the magic reverses, his head is just on a table, and then his body's walking around, and it rips off a statue's head or whatever it is.
The Napoleon head.
And puts it on, and then you have the nurse getting freaked out by the head on the table, and then she walks out, and then she sees the body with the Napoleon head, and she screams even more. Like, that's the type of thing I was like, oh, I can't wait to see more and more and more of that.
Go for a funny hijink rather than like, the body horror of like, oh, head's gone and now you're human again.
Yeah, I actually was worried that, is he going to die?
Yeah.
But it's not that type of film. There's also just maybe I'm just conditioned with movies and narratives and stuff like this, but there's just not a central villain. Like you have many little antagonistic figures, but it's like, I really would have loved if you had the principal come through as like a proper guy who was coming after or something, because that would also give a bit more of a sense of urgency. Like they need to stop her from doing this, but it just seems like the only reason that she's not stopped is because they haven't figured it out yet, which is okay to do. But I feel like you should add. Maybe I'm being unfair, because the other elements is like you do have these bully characters, you do have the school administration on both the supernatural and the human side. Like, yeah, I guess it's just none of them stood out. Like none of them really leapt out at me as like fun.
I guess, yeah, by default I would say like the bully characters would be the antagonists, but also for what they were used for, she had affiliation with them where she did do some stuff for them, and they had plans. I would have probably just preferred it if, like, she would bounce back and forth between, like, hanging out with, the nice guy and then the three of them and, like, doing various hijinks with them, because they all have different motivations. Like, the bullies have very selfish stuff. He's got, like, this, I guess, semblance of romance with her and wanting to help her out, like the human friend in another world. Just rather than having them be dicks who are standing in the way, like, have them work together on something and, create some more situations.
They were villains from Porky's or something. They were horny, weird teenage boy characters, but they were played by the most nerdy looking.
Yeah.
Dweeby,
the two non-main ones, like especially. In that scene where they're like laughing, like, you really thought we'd help you? It's like, you guys are dorks.
There was a moment where I was like, aren't all of you guys friends? Because they all look like dorks that would be friends. But it's like, oh no, they're supposed to be the Stephen King bullies, like
yeah.
They're not though. They just don't look like that. Without a doubt, the best performance of the movie in terms of like genuine, not like because they're silly, is the returning face of Czech cinema.
Yeah, what's his name? Vladimir or something?
Yeah, and he plays. It is her father, right? Or like fatherly figure.
Yeah, I was confused. When he's first seen, I thought he was the father, but then he just kept showing up.
I thought he was like a worker at the school, and then he was embroiled in her misadventures.
Like, he's the one that told her about, like, the book and, like, this is how you get to...
Yes.
Yeah.
And you're not mixing it because I think he played the actual father to the main girl in the last movie, in the lawyer movie, where it was a very similar thing.
I think he was one of the goons of the family.
Was he? Right.
I think. I might be wrong.
He maybe was. But, you know, he's okay in this. He stands out, yes, as Vladimir...
Oh, it is Vladimir.
It's Vladimir
Mensick.
Mensky, sorry. Yeah, you got it
Oh,
more.
I've got Mensick.
Mensick, so you better pronouncing these things than I. He's great because he's the most straight-laced performance, but he knows how to just give a little bit of a wink of I'm in the silly. Like, he has these prosthetic teeth in his mouth that give him that, you know, ghoulish look, but he's playing it very sincerely. So when at the end he also wants to join the human world, he starts chugging the thing, and the principal from the supernatural school like lunges, but he can't touch him. Like, I actually felt something because it's like, oh, this character's been a good person throughout the movie, so I'm actually happy. Like, he's had more of an ongoing journey and desire to become human than the main witch. So, and I think that's just because of his performance. He just holds himself in a very dignified way.
Well, I remember the other day we were hanging out. We did another meet date, and you were telling me, like, oh yeah, he's the only or you thought that he might be the only performer we'd see again, and you ended up being, I think, right about that. Other than, like, director returning. And yeah, even just like seeing him immediately, it's like, oh yep, I know that guy. I've seen you as a Nazi. I've seen you as a fishman,
a bartender,
and you were a bartender too in Lemonade Joe.
He has because of his, you know, his stature and the way his face is held, he can play a variety of roles, but there's a certain, in most of them, not all of them that we're seeing, but there's a certain kind of quiet dignity that he has that he can lean into the comedy with. But there is something like that with him, and I think he really brought that to the table here. Like, he's the fatherly figure, he's the friend, he's the guy that you want the best for.
Yeah.
Out of all of the people in the movie, you just want him to be okay, and then he is, and he gets to become a mortal being, so that's cool for him. But yeah,
the actor, he's like a beloved Czech character actor, right? Like, I think on his Wikipedia page, the main picture is like an artistic representation of him.
I was looking at Letterboxd because I mark down the Czech movies, and we've seen him in so many.
Yeah.
And we've only seen 1% of his film, less than 1%, because he has like 240 credits of just movies.
I think
movies.
I think I've looked at the list before, and it was big. I think it was one of those like 3-column ones.
Him and the actor that we love, Milos Kopecky.
Yeah.
Both of those guys just have their film careers. Just their film careers are huge. And we have not even gone beneath the top layer of their stuff. It's just so much.
If they were to meet us, you'd be like, "Oh, you've only seen our silly stuff."
And we haven't done one where he's the like lead. There is a couple where he's the lead, and some of them are directed by. Yeah. Some of them are directed by the same one that does Lemonade Joe. I've talked about before. There's one called Happy End where the film's in reverse. Yes, where it starts with.
You've talked about that one for a while.
But he's the lead of that, so we haven't seen him as a lead. He's always been like secondary, even more often minor.
Yeah. You have a DVD copy of that one, right?
No, that's one that's online, like the public domain, so you can find that online.
Oh, that's good.
I've been meaning to get more DVD copies of Czech films, but it's about time and effort and energy.
We need to
trying to get good qualities as well.
We've got a couple on the listening people's list that we just could not find copies of online, but have DVDs.
And I have a couple just in my DVD collection we haven't watched yet, just either for our own pleasure or for the pod. We like to watch those in groups because we have a group that people like the Czech films.
We've got a couple that we've watched in the past couple of years that weren't on the podcast.
But is there anything else you want to say about the girl on the Broomstick / our Broomstick? The Broomstick really came in handy.
Yeah, it was in 2 scenes.
Why is it named that?
I guess to evoke the idea of a witch for the audience. I don't know. I'd be curious to see what the actual Czech title literally translates into. Maybe it's just a localized title. Yeah, look, even though we have criticized this one a fair bit, it is still a decent time. If you have never seen a Czech film, this could be an okay one to start with. I would say double feature it with one of the like really good ones, though.
The saddest trivia point. I just had to get up the trivia because I did read the trivia before this.
Yeah, I checked out like nothing.
Milos Kopecky was originally considered for the part of the four-armed headmaster. He was originally considered, but he didn't get it.
Oh, he should have been the main character. He should have been the girl on the broomstick, Saxana.
Yes, and this has been adapted into a stage musical, which I can see. I can see as a musical version of this too.
You know what? I just remembered because I checked the YouTube URL for the upload that you said is no longer up.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to the URL, you can see the original title, and I think it was named like Saxana, the girl on the broomstick, which is the main character's name. So maybe that's another title, putting her name in the title.
And yeah, and there's lots of interesting stuff about like the production of this. There's a cult classic. It did not do as huge, but over time it's grown. And for some reason or another, because of legalities and whatever, the soundtrack of the movie wasn't released until like 2010. And the soundtrack is quite liked. I like the soundtrack of this movie too. It has
that opening song was really catchy.
And it's that nice, very poppy 70s sound to it. That is, I think it accompanies the style of this movie very well. But yeah, this was a good time. Like again, it's one where maybe it's a good. Would you say this is a good introductory one for people? And like, if you haven't seen a Czech movie, let's put this on.
If it's not on its own, I think showing this and then one that is like a real home run would be good.
Yeah, this and then I Killed Einstein, gentlemen.
Yeah, maybe that one. Maybe that one. Maybe Adela hasn't had a supper yet.
Oh God, that's a lot of allotness. That's quite the shift.
Basically, this and anyone that has Milos Kopecky in a notable role.
Okay, Milos, we miss you, buddy. Bartek, I do recommend the film, but lightly, and you seem like you recommend it as well.
Mm-hmm.
But it is actually your time to recommend a film for us to watch on the for the podcast, and then we'll cover it on the next episode of the podcast. So, what is the film that you have for us?
Sure. So we're going back to the 80s, Ryan. I'm picking a film that I've only seen maybe half of. It wasn't a bad film. It's just that I just come off a flight and I, was not awake.
Oh, okay.
So going back to finish this, but also it's one that I have been fond of what I've seen before. I've seen the opening scene countless times.
Oh.
And in recent weeks, I was actually watching an interview with the lead actor where they asked him like, oh, so what's like one of your favorite performances you've ever done? He's like, the opening scene of this film. Mm-hmm. Like it'll always live in my heart.
And it's Porky's, everyone.
It's Porky's, everyone. No, I have that on DVD, but I haven't seen a second of it. This might be another example of me picking a film from a genre or from an actor's repertoire where it's like, oh, that's not their best one. Why that one? But it seems to be well received. This is the 1983 version of To Be or Not to Be.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Mel Brooks,
Brooks and Anne Bancroft.
Anne Bancroft, yes, that's his wife.
Yep.
Was his wife, yes. It did give us the famous Hitler rap.
Yes, it did.
I think that was just spun off from it.
I think that was just like in the trailer, though. I don't think it's in the film
I don't think
itself.
It's in the movie.
Yeah.
Okay. Because, we'll talk about that. That's interesting because the original is beloved and this one has quite the reputation. So that'll be interesting because... I haven't seen the original one. I've only seen this, so we kind of cool to come back to this and be like, okay, let's talk about this on its own. I don't think you've seen the original To Be or Not to Be, so that'll be fun. Everyone, make sure to tune in for us talking about another Mel Brooks romp. We've done Mel Brooks.
We've done The Producers.
Done The Producers.
I don't think we've done one where he's actually been in it.
Physically in it.
Yeah, like he didn't direct this one. He's just the lead, but.
Oh, that's right. He didn't direct this one. I forget that. See,
yeah,
these are things
that's
I
always
forget,
something I forget too. Yeah, it's directed by Alan Johnson.
Oh, wow. So, everyone, thank you so much for listening. We shall be back with a Mel Brooks joint, but where he's only the acting man, not not the lead boy, not the directing boy. So there you go. You can find us on all of your social medias well, all of them, actually, just two, Facebook and Twitter. Should we do more? I don't think so. That's good enough for us.
I think we've made fun of being on more in the past. I remember we made fun of Instagram once.
Yeah, fuck Instagram.
And I've talked to many people who call it Insta. I was like, you guys should get Insta.
Insta ham, more like. How about we go to Blue Sky, the remedy to X, where people say it's like Twitter back in the old days. And what they mean by that is you can't upload GIFs yourself. So that's fun. You have to get it from the tenor, and it has a very limited amount of
This is a website
options.
from this decade, right?
Yeah. Well, they're going back to the good old days, the days where, where things were different and nice, and all the internet was such a warm, cuddly place. Remember the MySpace guy? Tom?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's on Blue Sky.
He liked Facebook.
He liked Facebook.
Like, yeah, I can accept that these guys beat me. It's a good website.
Did he say that?
Not like literally, but yeah, I think he said that he was a fan of Facebook.
Spiritually, he said that. Well,
sorry, I haven't memorized Tom quotes.
Please come back next week with Tom quotes. Does he have a last name?
He does, but everyone just calls him, Tom from MySpace, and they show the photo he used where he's like writing on a whiteboard and turning to look and smile.
That's iconic.
Yeah.
That's, he looks like a normal guy.
Yeah.
I like that Zuckerberg. He looks like an alien in disguise of human. And that's all that we have to say about social media. We're on them. Share our podcast around. Let your friends, family, and foes know about it. And if you want to reach out to us more directly, let us know your thoughts and opinions. Or if you have recommendations, you can do that through our social medias. But where else can people contact us?
You've got the social medias, you've got YouTube comments, but also we have an email address that you can very easily reach us at. It is spitandpolished@gmail.com.
Ooh, that is very good. I will say another strike against the girl and a broomstick is...
The girl and a broomstick?
Yeah, and a broomstick. And I'm changing the title.
Yeah.
You've corrected me on what I've seen be correct, and now I'm just giving up. I'm like, okay, Bartek.
Okay, strike against broomstick, a girl.
Okay, thank you. Okay, in the film The Broomstick and a Girl, I'm very upset that it wasn't spookier. Like, in terms of its visuals. I kind of wish that it had a kind of more moody aesthetic to it, at least in juxtaposition from the supernatural world to the real world. Like, when we go from here's a random spooky set to here's, I guess, Prague or wherever they
If we could
are.
if we could have anything that was as impactful as the underwater scenes in Dr. Mraček for this film, like, that would have been, like, oh, that was great.
But that is it. Thank you all so much for listening. Remember to be kind to each other, or else Bartek will turn into a cow. And that's not good. You can't have that. You better turn back into a chicken or something. No hens in the classroom, Bartek.
Yeah, but if you go to a school, you gotta wear a tie. So if you got a hen, you gotta have a tie hen.
Reverse that, everyone. Think about it.
Aight, Nick.